Hello and welcome back to A Fall from Grace. We will be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after, I believe, Cedric and Vincent were having a disagreement over robbing and possibly hurting some other bandits that had previously robbed one of them, and I forget who is who. I believe Cedric is the protagonist and Vincent is the bandit who used to be his friend, I think. I might have that the other way around. I don't know. But that sort of ended any possible good night that they were gonna have. Also the protagonist, because I'm gonna avoid getting his name wrong. Was getting a little friendlier with some of the other bandits around there, getting to know them a little bit more. My personal favorite is a tiger, but, then again, I have a personal preference for tigers, but also the hyena, Dion. I do remember that one. Who has a flair for the dramatic. Also, by the way, if I sound a little weird, I think I have allergies right now. But yeah. But yeah, he's getting a little bit more comfortable, or a little less comfortable. He doesn't quite know, at least this is what I'm getting from the story, if he fits in this life yet or not, because I believe there was a point that was made in the previous update that if you're going to be a bandit, you're going to have to be comfortable with the fact that aside from just robbing people, that you might have to hurt people too. And not just bad people, good people. You're going to have to trick them, and you're going to have to maybe hurt them physically and perhaps take a life sooner or later. We do have the lion, whose name I forget, who is obsessed with the main character and finding him and then taking him back, and in his own weird kind of obsessed way make him his. Yeah, there's a whole lot of things going on. Anywho, I believe that there's gonna be there was a ball or something. I'm not sure if that's what's gonna happen here or next, but yeah, they have to be preparing for that, I believe. Also, there are some NSFW scenes, which I will skip, just so you know, because unfortunately I can't put that on here on YouTube. I do record them, most of them, but you're not going to be seeing them, okay? So don't be so disappointed. If I had any other way to upload these videos and include these types of things, I would probably show them, but unfortunately, because this is YouTube and this is their rules, you're not going to see them. Okay? Anywho, so yeah, without further ado, let us continue A Fall from Grace. The two entered Dion's tent, remaining silent as Cedric softly sat himself down, the hyena wandering over to a small gold-leafed cabinet and pulling out a leather flask. Cedric hadn't had a chance to set foot in the bandit leader's tent until now. As he took in his surroundings, he noticed just how much they matched Dion's personality. Many small prints and artist sketches were displayed, sitting on a couple of ornate chests and propped up against the tent's fabric. The hyena's bed matched the appearance of those he'd seen in everyone else's tent at first sight. Upon closer inspection, the lack of characteristically Dion-esque bed frame was made up for by some beautiful Middle Eastern-looking sheets and a pair of colorful pillows with the Sicilian or Mediterranean pattern. An object that caught Cedric's eye was a chest that had been left open, and that he could see contained what must have been at least 40 books. Lastly, his gaze drifted to an old poster advertising the production of a new play which must have dated back to Dion's days as an actor in his old theater company. Despite all of this, the space was uncluttered, as each bandit still had to be practical and consider the option of having to pack everything up and move away at a moment's notice, though Cedric did wonder how on earth they all made do with Hollis's carriage for transporting the amount of chests he'd seen lying around. Care for a drink? The coyote leaned forward, nervously reaching for the flask that he was being offered, and swallowed its contents without hesitation. Careful there, lad. That's whiskey there you're downing. Some sputtering followed as Cedric tried to compose himself again in front of the hyena. He certainly wasn't making the situation any less embarrassing. Dion sat down on a creaky wooden chair opposite of Cedric, crossing his hands and bending forward. At this precise moment, his expression was nigh impossible to read. His eyes were narrowed, his eyebrows curved, and his mouth almost a straight, thin line. He really was huge, the coyote thought to himself, and right now, with the uncertainty of what he was about to say downright intimidating. All Cedric was able to glean from Dion's mannerisms was that the bandit looked wrapped up in thought, carefully considering what he should say and how to convey it best. His heart began to beat faster, accompanied by a drop of sweat making its way down his forehead. Was this what he thought it might be? Was he actually going to be kicked out of the group? First of all, what is the name of that French painter? You know, the one that specializes in those idyllic pastoral landscapes? Lots of green, pinks, and blues. I saw his pieces hung around a number of estates the time my fellow thespians and I visited La Belle France. This was not what Cedric had been expecting. Still, it somehow managed to break the tension and help snap the younger bandit out of his silence. Fragonard or something like that? The author of The Swing? Aye, Fragonard, that's the fellow. What about him? Well, there's a very curious detail that I've noticed. His paintings all suggest an idyllic view of nature and the countryside, a place where nobles can take refuge from the stifling ways of the court. It's escapism, except it's not quite that plain. There is always something occurring beneath the surface. Therein lies my point. There's always something that you don't see. Likewise in the dark areas of a Caravaggio painting. Cedric lets out an internal sigh of relief upon realizing the hyena was starting to get carried away with a seemingly random topic of conversation, as usual. This discussion was nothing to be nervous about after all. The coyote wasn't in trouble, and he wasn't being kicked out of the group. Yet, he felt this really wasn't the right moment for whichever point Dion was trying to get at. He needed more time alone to mull things over and decide what he did or didn't want to do. Even heading out to Ridley's tent to have a chat with the bear like he'd originally intended sounded like a better solution than this pointless detour. He sprung to his feet much faster than he had planned, unable to help himself despite his best efforts to avoid being impolite. Despite this, he wasn't being rude at all. He thought to himself, he would certainly be happy to return to the hyena's tent to resume their chat later that day. I very much agree with you, Dion. It's quite a fascinating topic, though I think might be best if we save it for later today. I just needed to wander over to Ridley's to ask him something about... Sit down, lad. Dion raised his voice, his expression growing dead serious. This isn't about art or history. It's about you and it's about Victor. I didn't think that you were beyond a metaphor. Cedric sheepishly crept back to the seat after being told off. The bandit leader crossed his hands, lowering his voice. It is not my place to interfere in your private matters. However, if you're to stay as a member of the masquerade for the near future, there are things it is pointless to keep hidden from you. The Victor that you know nowadays is not your childhood friend. What do you mean? The coyote was even more puzzled at this remark. You've both had your struggles and hard times, but life especially hasn't been kind to him since you two saw each other as young boys. You need to remember that you've each missed out on around a decade of each other's life, and though you've happily rekindled what had begun so long ago, you're both different compared to your younger selves. As so often happens, it might not feel that way to you, but you have had years of experience, tons of happy and sad memories that the other has yet to learn about. This is something that you both need to start acknowledging. It might be hard, and I understand that, but you are not children anymore. Vic is exceedingly good at putting on a mask when necessary, But this can be counterproductive, especially when relationships of any sort are concerned. Honesty is vital, take it from me, and I hope that that's something that he will improve on thanks to you. Though you're not exempt from this either. This mustn't just be a one-sided effort. But what doesn't he want me to know? The hyena leaned back, unable to avoid being a little melodramatic even in the situation. Not my place to say, lad, except for any aspects which might involve me directly. The bandit cleared his throat. Such as favors? Oh, so many favors. He shook his head. I love the lad, there is no hiding it. He is clever, handsome, charismatic, and a brilliant thief. But as a bandit leader, when I offer something, I expect some form of compensation. That is what we were talking about on the second day of your trials, and that's why Victor was so enthusiastic about that masked ball that we heard talk of in Hidingstone. A heist on so big of a scale would mean that he'd be able to pay me back completely. His debt of his is something that he's no doubt kept hidden from you. Not for any malicious reasons, of course, but simply to keep up that veneer of confidence and ease that he has around you, an ideal version of himself you see in him, and that he doesn't want to shatter. I've seen your positive influence on that rogue with my very eyes. It's almost uncanny the Victor that I first met was a broken and self-hating wreck by comparison. Dion smiled for the first time since their conversation first began. You make him happy, Cedric. He really loves you. You know, he never kept his memories of you hidden from anyone. There is a reason that we'd all heard of this coyote childhood friend. There's no rush. But when the time is right, speak to him. Let him know that you are someone that he can be close and vulnerable with. I'm sure that he'll realize the mistake that he made earlier when confronting you. You know? Cedric was trying to ask how or if the hyena was familiar with the subject of his argument with the fox, but only managed a couple of words. The hyena replied with a wink. Hard to keep secrets with this lot. After a moment's silence, Cedric recalled the cause of this argument with Victor. About that. There are some things that I won't do, and killing is one of them. I don't know where you or the other bandits stand on this matter, but it's not something that I want to change about myself. And yes, I'm willing to argue about this. Just because other noblemen secretly engage in nefarious deeds in this country or overseas doesn't mean that I have to act the same way. Besides, I'm not a nobleman anymore. This is a difficult subject. There is no way around it. Perhaps you may allow me to return to my earlier metaphor. There's always something that you don't see. Each time any of us is getting a job done, we put on a show. It is all theater. But this kind of performance isn't just harmless fun. It comes with risks. And of course, what each of us needs to consider is that, at the end of the day, despite our best and noblest intents, one of our victims might get hurt or killed. The willingness to engage with that amount of risk, to a greater or lesser extent, varies for each one of us. But as a general rule, we always want people's money. Seldom or ever do we want their life, despite what manner of wretched character we have before us. All I can ask you to do is to consider and come to terms with the fact that if you're willing to be one of us, which you have already proven most convincingly, you're going to end up hurting someone eventually. I know. While I don't like thinking about it this way, I must consider it at least. Still, as a bandit, I'm gonna abide by my own rules, and my principal rule is to never set out to kill anybody if I can help it. He lifted his head again, looking directly at Dion. Yes, hurting someone as a bandit is inevitable, but I believe killing is not. You know, there is quite a charm about you, Cedric. You're alarmingly direct and sincere, as well as not being afraid to confront someone when the morals that you live by are being challenged. If this were a test, you would have passed it. Now it was Cedric's turn to smile at the statement. He replied teasingly. What, are you also making advances on me? I had this happen yesterday already. You boys must be desperate. The coyote wasn't quite sure where the confidence with which he said those words came from, especially in a situation like this. Not that he minded. Dion burst out laughing and sat up from his chair confidently. Moving towards Cedric, he placed a hand beneath the coyote's chin. "Keep up that energy, lad, and you'll get places with these merry men and their leader." He winked. "My tent bed is always available. That's all I'm saying." He then rested his large hand on the coyote's back as they both approached the tent's exit. "Talk things over with Vic. You'll patch things up, I'm sure. And you know, I'm always here if you need me. It's my duty." Cedric smiled. "Thank you, Dion. And sorry for being sappy earlier." "Au revoir." The hyena turned away, disappearing behind his tent's white fabric. Cedric was left standing alone in the misty campsite once again. The quiet, murmuring sounds of the old forest were all that could be heard around him for almost miles on end. The conversation with Dion had gone differently to what he had been expecting, but it had somehow left him feeling hopeful. Still, it was hard for him to reconcile the fact that the Victor that he loved and cared about so strongly would hide aspects of himself from Cedric, even though it was coming from a place of love and respect, nor that the fox would consider taking anyone's life for that matter, despite the situation being more nuanced than he'd first thought. As much as he wished it didn't, that was still the main aspect that unnerved Cedric. Brushing the argument aside to avoid any further conflict seemed like the opposite of a good idea. He needed to properly discuss things with Victor again without getting heated, so that they'd both fully understand each other's point of view. Wandering over to their tent, the coyote decided that he'd have a lie down and wait for his partner to return. But what if he didn't return? Dion was right. Engaging in a dangerous heist comes with its risks. That goes without saying. What if he got hurt or worse? He mentioned Blake was going to assist him. Hopefully the Doberman was wise enough to keep them both out of trouble. A bleaker thought began to slowly and unnervingly take shape. What if the fox chose not to return? Cedric realized in moments like these that he felt that he didn't know Victor as well as he wished he did. He had no idea what the bandit was capable of when upset. He almost threw himself on the bed and closed his eyes, trying to clear his mind of these troubling thoughts. Upon opening his eyes again, he noticed the light outside the tent had faded. He'd slept for what must have been at least a couple of hours. I suppose I needed it. The atmosphere in the tent's interior almost felt soothing, the faint flicker of candlelight dancing upon the white fabric. Cedric's eyes widened. He hadn't lit any candles earlier, and that could only mean one thing. With a jump, he turned around to look away from the corner that he'd been facing. Victor was sitting on a chair, twirling his pendant and staring at the ground nearby. He lifted his head as soon as he noticed Cedric's movement. Hey. Are you all right? Cedric exhaled, trying his best to smile for the fox despite still managing to look him in the face. I'm all right. Victor was also unable to make eye contact and was looking away, setting his eyes on the jug and porcelain bowl they kept on a wooden chest. How did it go? Did you and Blake manage the job? We didn't go through with it. Not after earlier. I just couldn't. The fox hung his head low again. Cedric, I'm sorry. I'm sorry too. Cedric felt strong emotions beginning to well up, his eyes dampened by tears. You have nothing to apologize for. It is on me. It always is. I can't get one fucking thing right in my life. The fox slammed his left leg, lifting up a small cloud of dust when his boot hit the ground. V, darling, it's all right. Apologizing shows your inner strength. Lord knows many people that I've met who have not been able to form an apology, even for the smallest of things. It's ridiculous. I don't want to lose you, Cedric. Tears were streaming down the bandit's cheeks. I always put myself and my own needs before anyone else's. I never put myself in other people's shoes. I'm tired of not listening. I'm tired of making mistakes when I do things others have warned me not to do. I don't want to leave you behind. Not you too. Victor shook his fists, bending forward and speaking between sobs. Cedric got up from the bed and walked over to where his partner was sitting. He wanted to pull him in for the warmest embrace, but despite his best efforts, he couldn't even lift a finger and stood frozen in his place, unable to make physical contact. The feeling of regret for what he'd said to Victor earlier had stung him and was growing stronger by the minute. I'm scared, Cedric. I'm scared of messing up and losing you. I've lost so much already. You were right. I am a hypocrite. I've done so many things without consulting you, so many things that ended up upsetting you. I did them thinking that they'd make you happy, but I was only thinking about myself instead, as blood usual. The fox's sobs grew fainter as he leant forward and buried his muzzle in Cedric's waistcoat. Upon feeling his partner's touch and hereby knowing that he had permission to return the affection, the coyote finally succeeded in lifting his arms and gently ran his hands along Victor's back without saying a word. As for that giant monolith of mine, Victor chose his next words carefully. It is tough for me to not feel resentment towards the upper classes. I've seen what they've done to people like me, my family and my friends. But you're different. You've shown me that I was wrong. There's nuance in everything, even in this. Can you forgive me? Cedric sighed. I was wrong to. It was foolish of me to expect us to always see eye to eye on everything. We're not the same person. We each have our own thoughts and lived experiences. We're not even the same people that we used to be a few years ago. Our own selves have a way of constantly shifting. I've been holding on to this image of our past for so long, and ended up clouding my judgment. Worst of all, I've been holding you to that standard of who I remembered you to be, instead of who you are. I don't want to disappoint you. The coyote kept speaking, unable to focus on anything but wording his own thoughts as well as he could manage. I want to let go of all of that and get to know you, Victor. I remember who you were, but I need to learn who you are right now. And same goes for me. I want you to get to know me and everything about me, including all the mistakes and stupid life decisions that I've made. Dion was right. We're not children anymore. When did he say that? Victor's voice was still faint. He asked me to have a talk with him earlier and managed to knock some sense into me. A moment of silence followed as the fox took a deep breath, lifting his head and slowly moving away from Cedric. He's right. I need to stop forcing myself to act a certain way. To be who my mind tells me I once was. If I truly love you, I need to be open with you. As do I, instead of expecting you to behave a certain way. We can't just solve everything and smooth things out instantly, but we can take the first of many steps towards being happier together and working better as a couple. Victor nodded, resting his head on his right hand and closing his eyes for a few seconds. Cedric took a few steps back, sitting down on the soft bed again. I'd like to learn more about what happened during the time that we spent apart. If you're comfortable explaining some of it to me, and it doesn't have to be right now, of course. It is all right. There is one thing that I think that you ought to know in particular. Before I met the rest of the masquerade, I knew someone else. As in, another bandit. Though of course the jobs that we got up to then were nothing compared to what I or any of you would be able to pull off nowadays. We were very close, though I don't think that I could call it more than friendship. It felt very different to what you and I have now. But still, there was a strong bond between us, and we swore that we'd get through hard times together. His name was Yivas. He gave me the strength to keep going after losing my family. It was a connection that I was desperately in need of at that moment. And it helped. It really did. I don't know where I would have ended up had I not met him by chance. But as much as I appreciate it, Our bond didn't last. As time went on, we began to drift apart, and despite sharing the same hideout and still planning our robberies together, feelings grew colder between us. Then one day, a risky heist that we'd planned started turning ugly. I could see no way out of it for both of us, but all I knew was I didn't want to end up behind bars a second time. We were in a small mansion cellar. I was just about to climb out of the window. That's when a couple of guards appeared behind us, chasing after Hughes as he ran behind me. I managed to get out and turn around to lend him a hand, only to see more guards outside to my left heading for me. If I made a quick run for it, I would have caught them by surprise and managed a quick getaway. I didn't have time to think. It all happened so quickly. I wish that this wasn't so hard to talk about. He took another deep breath before resuming his story. Next thing that I knew, I was safe, and I was alive. But I'd left another person behind. I'd abandoned them. Upon seeing him on the verge of tears again, Cedric picked out the kerchief tucked in his waistcoat, handing it to Victor, much like the fox had done that evening that the two lovers first shared a kiss. Yves gifted me that pendant that I still wear to this day. That's all that I have left. I kept it as a reminder, not as to what could have been, but as to hold myself accountable for what I've done. If he's managed to avoid the gallows and make it out of jail in one piece, he'd probably kill me should he set eyes on me again. I know that our relationship is different, but I have this fear that what happened with him might happen with you, albeit not in the same way. I wouldn't even have anything to remember you by. I lost that chess piece like an idiot, the one you gifted me when we set off on our journey. The coyote shook his head in an attempt to reassure Victor this detail wasn't a big deal. Never mind about that. It's all right. Before meeting the others, I was afraid that I'd never be able to build a connection with other people without somehow managing to break it or sour it eventually. That's why I've tried so hard not to let you down. I'm just worried that there's not much to me beneath the surface. V, it's all right. Seriously. All that we can do is learn from these experiences. We both messed up. Now it's up to us to mend things together. We'll start again tomorrow. Victor managed a timid smile. It feels quite surreal, but I'm glad that I've told you this. Thank you for sharing it with me. Despite how tough this whole conversation had been, it had left Cedric feeling hopeful. This wasn't going to be smooth as he assumed at first, but this was a road that they were both willing to travel. After a little while, Victor pitched the idea of an evening walk, which Cedric gladly accepted after having spent most of the day sitting or lying down. They quietly set off and followed the stream near the camp, gradually leaving the area that they'd grown familiar with behind. They let the sound of the watercourse guide them on their journey, taking the opportunity to fill a couple of flasks that they'd chosen to carry with them. The dark shapes of the ancient trees around them reminded Cedric of warm and friendly guides accompanying the lovers on their way along the wood's hidden paths. There was something almost primordial about this night walk. It filled the coyote with the same wild expression that he'd felt when riding back to the camp the prior evening, that of letting go of who he was and being at one with the landscape surrounding him. It was as if he and the rest of the masquerade belonged here, hidden in the murk, gently flowing in the wind like the boughs of a secular willow, just one of the wood's countless secrets that would be lost to time. The breeze rustled against his fur, murmuring on its way and bending with nature's other sounds, creating a sweet music that animals of Cedric's kind could only attempt to recreate without even coming close to the original. The coyote swore that he could hear actual music now, the sound of a distant piper echoing between the hills and tree trunks. It was a sweet, melancholy tune quite unlike anything that he had ever heard in a tavern, a theater, or even a ballroom. It was as if the tune itself had sprung up from the soil, just as all the plants around them had. He wanted to open his mouth and speak to Victor, just to ask the fox if he could hear it too. But he wasn't able to. He knew once he did so, the sorceress notion would evaporate, vanishing as rapidly as it had appeared. No, he wanted to experience this for a little longer. Even just a moment would feel like enough. He turned to look at Victor, walking beside him. Was this even still Victor? The moon had disappeared behind some thick clouds and he couldn't quite make the fox's shape out in the dark. But he could feel his presence near him, and he hadn't a trace of fear. This was the Victor that he knew, the Victor that he felt safe with. The boughs surrounding them were shaped like thick curtains, shielding them from the outside world. Maybe this was all an illusion, an otherworldly vision, the work of benevolent woodland spirits watching over him, keeping him safe. The ground they were treading on was beginning to rise, and the two quickened their pace, excitedly waiting to reach the top of this hill that they'd only just discovered. They soon felt the terrain level out, as the bright moon reappeared in the night sky. Victor brushed the leaf curtains aside, revealing a breathtaking view of the surrounding landscape concealed behind them, stretching far out towards the horizon as far as the eye could see. The sight of the rolling hills, the dark forests, the picturesque villages and distant pathways was overwhelming. For a moment, none of it even felt real. Cedric was reminded of the evening he and the fox had walked on the rooftops of the houses neighboring the bandits' hideout in their old town. He felt lucky, privileged to be in that spot at that time. He and Victor held hands as they gazed outwards. This is something that I am not going to forget for a long, long time. Victor smiled. I already know that I'm going to look back on this moment. I just wish that I had some parchment and charcoal. I'd ask you to sketch this landscape for me. The coyote pondered the idea. I'm not sure. I feel like it would lose its magic that way. Perhaps you're right. We'll just have to hold it in our thoughts as a memory. Aye, like the memories of all those sweet summer days that we spent together. Cedric was unable to restrain himself from speaking his mind as a wave of nostalgia hit him. If only I could go back to them, even just for a moment. The fox shook his head. That is wishful thinking, my dear. You said it yourself earlier. There is no changing or recreating the past. That's the reason that we end up dwelling on it so much. Too much. To the point that we might end up remembering what was never real in the first place. All of that has been, both good and bad. If you try to view that in a positive light, it can be quite encouraging, I feel. You were right. What we need to focus on now is moving forward together and getting to know each other anew, including all of our similarities and differences. I'm sorry for getting carried away. I promise that I'll do my best for the both of us. The couple gently held hands, gazing at the rolling hills surrounding them. I promised to. The two stood there for a while, allowing the cool evening breeze to gently blow their fur. This moment, like all the ones previously, wouldn't last forever. It was better to cherish it while it still was. Victor took a deep breath before turning around, ready to head back downhill again. Cedric soon followed, though not without glancing at the landscape one last time. He could already feel the magic grow fainter as they both made their way back to the camp, listening out for the sound of the stream. You reckon anyone else ever stood in that spot besides us? If only trees could talk, my dear. Cedric chuckled before growing thoughtful as he recalled all that they'd just experienced. One day we should return to this forest and seek that hill out again. I like that idea. They soon reached the stream, which led them back to a more familiar ground after about 20 minutes. Despite it being such a peaceful late-night walk, Cedric was still relieved to see the friendly shape of their tent growing closer and closer since his feet were beginning to give in for the night. I have a feeling that I'm going to sleep very well. Victor yawned loudly. As am I, darling. The sound of branches snapping along with some muffled voices reaches Cedric's ears just as the fox was heading inside their lodgings. V, did you hear that? A drowsy voice answered from within. Hear what? The coyote whispered. It sounds like there could be someone nearby. Are you sure that your mind isn't playing tricks with you? It's been quite a day after all. I know I heard something. Yeah, this is one of the first of many that I'm gonna have to skip. Could you do me a huge favor and go have a look? Just to put my mind at ease, V. As you wish. Though I really don't think that it's anything to worry about. I'll take my pistol with me, just in case. Thank you so much, and please be careful with that. I'll keep an ear open until you return. V picked up his belt from the rickety chair that he'd started leaving his clothes on while undressing. I'm sure that it's nothing. I hope so. The fox stepped outside, and Cedric sat himself down on the bed, unbuttoning his jacket and waistcoat. A few minutes later, he heard the fox's footsteps nearing the tent and caught a glimpse of Victor's silhouette. Everything's all right. The coyote set foot outside to inquire in case the fox had seen something, only to notice that he had the naughtiest grin on his face. Especially for Braken Ridley. What do you mean? Oh. Oh, I see. Cedric shook his head. It didn't take him long to realize what the fox had meant by that. Those whores. Get a room. Or tent, more like. The couple laughed, fondly embracing each other. Upon entering their tent, Cedric downed more than half of one of the flasks that the two had filled with water. He was ready for a good night's sleep. I'll see you in the morning, V. I love you, Cedric. The coyote smiled. I love you too, and I look forward to spending more time with you. And whatever fate throws our way, we'll deal with it together. He hugged Victor, giving the fox a quick goodnight kiss, before laying down, closing his eyes and falling into a deep slumber in a matter of seconds. So, it turns out that I'm sick. So I'm having to record these intros and outros when I'm full-blown sick. Anyway, so, turns out that Dion wasn't gonna kick our poor little coyote out of the troop just yet. He just wanted to have a talk to him, well, with him, I mean, about what's going on with Victor. And basically to tell him that they kind of have to work out what's going on between Victor and Cedric, you know, for the betterment of the company, and also because Vincent had to, I guess, take out some favors with Dion about you know, allowing him in and then training him and then eventually like leaving. Although for some reason I kind of feel like that might not actually happen. But yeah. It's good that Vincent and Cedric had a talk and that they realized that they're not dealing with the same people that they used to know back when they were younger. These are not Vincent and Cedric from when they were like teens. This is adult versions of each other. And they have done and seen things, like Dion said, that the other does not know about. And that for the benefit of each other, they better start talking about these things and they better realize this. Because otherwise it's going to be even more problems for each other. Yeah. Anywho, so what are your thoughts so far? Obviously, I ended up chopping up this update into like 3 parts because well, for one, it gives me content when I'm sick, and number 2, because if I ended up chopping it up into 2 parts, because it ends up being around 2 hours, it would end up cutting right in between somebody else's story, which you'll see next. But yeah, anyway, so you know, write down in the comments what you think so far, and thank you all for watching / listening. If you'd like to play A Fall from Grace yourself, you can do so by going down to the link in the description, which should have a direct link for the itch.io page where you can download the game and play it yourself. They do have a Patreon in case you want to support them, and yeah, you know, you get early access to stuff. Also, I have you know, channel member link down in the description in case you want to watch these videos as they're being scheduled, and it does help support the channel. And I do have a Ko-fi in case you want to do like a one-time donation, or a throw-in case you want to, buy me a book. But yeah, anyway, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.